what would you say has been the most successful fundraiser that you've ever been a part of, whether it's at Calm or somewhere else?
The one that springs to mind, and I've talked about this quite a lot recently actually, is Jingle Jam. So Jingle Jam is the world's biggest charity gaming event, and we were fortunate enough at Calm to be one of the charities beneficiaries of it last year. So it takes place for 2 weeks over the Christmas period, was sort of the beginning of December. And I mean, for me, it was the first time having quite a large scale, fundraising coming from the kind of gaming and streaming space. It's something that in all the charities I've worked in, we've tried to get into, but it hasn't quite come off, certainly to the levels of this. And we had a moment when it launched. So the people who were kind of waiting for it to launch are there because they basically sell a kind of collection of games that are only able to buy through being part of Jingle Jam. So when it launches, everyone is ready to go and to start making their donations for those games. We had the whole of our charity. I mean, we're only small anyway, but we were all around the telly, pressing refresh, literally watching this number go up and up and up. And it was going up by tens of thousands within minutes. So yeah, it was phenomenal to be able to stand there and see that money come in, but also to see the reaction of the streamers and all of the people at Jingle Jam who were doing that was, yeah, brilliant.
Hello and welcome to On the Same Landing Page, episode 20. I'm Jason. I'm joined by my co-host Astra.
Hello.
We help charities apply for and manage advertising grants, and this works by bringing us closer to the challenges within the third sector. To help us and our audience understand it better and share the best practices, we like to record open conversations about the industry and the great work that people like our next guest is doing. So today we are talking to Emily Clayton, who is the fundraising director at CALM, which is an acronym for Campaign Against Living Miserably. CALM is a mental health charity responsible for the world's first minister for suicide prevention and, more recently, the No Signal for Help Should Go Unseen campaign with Lioness and CALM ambassador Fran Kirby. Previous to her work at CALM, Emily has years of experience across marketing, communications, and senior fundraising roles for Cancer Research UK, Shelter, and has worked agency side with a focus on the third sector. Welcome to the show, Emily.
Hello.
I felt like I was a bit long-winded with my introduction there, but I hope it encapsulates all of the things that you've covered. What we really want to get into to begin with is, as part of spilling the charity, as we call it, the work of the charity. Can you tell us a bit about CALM and the work you do?
Yeah, sure. So CALM is a suicide prevention charity, and we therefore exist to prevent suicide. And we do that by offering life-saving services, also thought-provoking campaigns like the one that you mentioned, and also tools and guides that can really help people start conversations when they might be suspecting that a friend or family member is potentially, not feeling good or having suicidal thoughts. So we specialise in working across kind of the whole continuum of mental health, so prevention right through to intervention. So we do really deal with kind of crisis and people who are feeling suicidal. And we do that by having a helpline that is run by paid professionals who are equipped to take action and not just listen. And our helpline is open 365 days a year from 5 p.m. till midnight. So my work within that is to lead the fundraising team, to raise the funds that are needed to deliver those services, but also do that in a way that really helps supporters reject living miserably. So fundraising at CALM should be something that's fun, but also really impactful.
Awesome. Yeah, striking the balance between a serious subject, but making it something that engages people and is also positive is a difficult one, I guess. But in the new campaign that CALM have got, it brings awareness to mental health for young women. And the campaign is entitled Unseen Signals and includes a video of Lioness and CALM ambassador Frank Kirby. who gets physically injured during a football game and gets completely ignored, which is obviously, it doesn't normally happen in a game. So the awareness that it brings there is to how underrepresented mental health is for women. And it's obviously early days, but have you seen a reaction to the campaign? Some feedback from the campaign?
Yeah, so the campaign is, I guess, really one of the sort of services that we really provide, and one of the ways that we are trying to prevent suicide. It's absolutely not there to be kind of a donations campaign or a fundraising campaign. It is there to provide the awareness and the information that someone might need to recognise that someone is going through a difficult time. We do, however, usually see a halo effect on donations when we do put these kind of really big thought-provoking campaigns out there. We have had quite a few different things running at the same time, so it's hard to say at the moment, exactly what uplifts in donations, for example, we might have seen from the campaign. It only came to an end last week because it's obviously been run in line with the Women's World Cup, so we haven't had the full kind of debrief on everything yet, but it's certainly been well received, and we've had loads and loads of comments and feedback, and it's definitely, I think that, I mean, the shocking stat in it is about the fastest rise of any group, which is young women under 24 having suicidal thoughts or taking their lives. So it's definitely raised awareness of that like horrible stat, really.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, so often in especially in marketing, we get told, donate campaign, drive all the donations, but actually higher up the funnel, if you like, awareness and stuff is one of the most important ways that then impacts, the lower down in there. So it's good to see that you guys are like focused on all of them and not just the kind of bottom line.
Yeah, and I think it's a real challenge, especially when we know a campaign like that will be, having such great reach, to remain like focused and true to what the objective of that campaign is, which is raising awareness and helping people understand these signs, and not to just badger donate ask on the end of me as fundraising director, like, it has to be but it's part of the services that we provide.
Yeah, you mentioned there about the most significant rise being in young women. Can you just give an overview of like the mental health landscape in the UK at the moment? Because I know it's on the increase sort of everywhere, but just to give people a taste of what you guys are trying to campaign against, essentially.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's definitely not a pretty picture. 1 in 4 people are struggling with their mental health, and that means that the NHS are just too stretched to be able to support everyone that needs them. So it really does leave charities like ours to be able to support. And we're seeing that through a real increase in calls. So we're having about a 95% increase in calls to our helpline since 2019. The pandemic obviously had a huge impact on people's mental health, and we saw a lot more calls then. But actually, even since then, things like the cost of living crisis is still having a huge impact on the demand that we're seeing for our services. So we're getting about 25,000 calls a month, to put that into context. But the really scary thing behind it is that this is now a national emergency. Suicide is becoming more common. Someone dies by suicide every 90 minutes. And actually 1 in 5 people will experience suicidal thoughts. So it's not as, I think that there's so much stigma and there's so much taboo around suicide, but I think just thinking of it like that 1 in 5 people will have this experience shows that it is, a much bigger kind of mental health crisis than perhaps is first realised.
Yeah, you always remember the stat as well, don't you? Is it 1 in 3 people are affected by cancer, which is something that, most people know someone who's had cancer or has cancer now. So for it to be 1 in 5, it's not that big of a jump, is it?
Yeah.
So are the phone calls volunteer run, or is it like a paid staff members?
Yes. So our helpline is run by paid professionals, so they are able to intervene as well as to just kind of listen and to give advice, and they're able to provide kind of really tangible action plans for people. So people should leave the calls with a way forward, and that's a real objective of ours.
Yeah, I think it's super important to have, like you say, when you're dealing with this kind of stuff, volunteers would be lovely, but you've just got to have the right people on the end of the phone, haven't you? So it's such a sensitive subject.
Emily, can you share a success story where your charity's made a real difference in someone's life?
I can. I feel, you know, we make a real difference in people's lives all of the time, and we don't perhaps capture and use as many stories of people who have been impacted by us as the charities, and certainly other charities that I've worked as well, largely because our helpline is confidential. So, you know, many people won't want to talk about publicly what they have used our helpline for. But we do have a lot of people who have been so impacted that they are willing to share their story and, you know, become kind of an ambassador for us and talk about the work that we do. I guess one of the standout supporters that I've met in my time working at Calm is a guy who used our helpline. He now does a huge amount of fundraising for us, and he's even had a tattoo of the Calm logo on his arm.
Wow.
That's nice. That just shows how much you're touching people's lives and making a difference, right? Are there to support like all of the work you do, how do you keep the momentum going? Is there some of the unique fundraising events or campaigns that your charity has kind of taken part of or pioneered?
So yeah, we are, I guess the growth of Calm and the fundraising, especially of Calm, has been huge over the last 5 years. So sort of 6 years ago, we were raising about 1.5 million in fundraising, and now we're more at the sort of 6.5 million bracket, which is, you know, really great. Not as much as we need, so would still like some more. But that has really kind of changed the shape of the fundraising and where our income comes from over those years. Historically, challenge events, London Marathon, that kind of thing was by far the biggest driver of income, and particularly, and you know, kind of in relation to what you said before, people who have been part of the kind of the Calm group in some way are so inspired to do something that taking on a big challenge has felt like a really tangible thing that they can do for us. Obviously, the pandemic stopped that. So we really had to look for different ways of fundraising. And actually, that has now steered us into looking at way more different things and actually broadening out our portfolio to try and have a bit more of a I guess a sustainable and reliable base of fundraising. Like, we all obviously hope that something like that doesn't happen again, but you know, it's been a great reason to sort of pivot and look at things differently. We do still have a huge amount of our income coming from people doing events for us and taking part in something like that. And I think especially for a suicide prevention and mental health charity, that sense of belonging and that sense of coming together in a group is, it just, you know, it marries so well in the kind of the values that we have as an organization. So I guess our newest event has been Snowdon at Night, which took place just in July. So, you know, it's not a new thing, but it was new for Calm to do a kind of standalone event where anyone taking part was raising money for us. It went incredibly well. The weather was awful, but everyone still had an incredible time taking part. And I think that the bit that really stood out for me is we had a large group from one of our corporate partners taking part, and we were lucky enough to be shared the email that the kind of MD sent afterwards to everyone that took part. And the way he talked about the experience of that night, of walking together, of the connections made, is exactly what we want fundraising to be like for Calm. It's not just about the raising the money. It was the fact that, you know, those people will have an experience that they will never forget, having done that together. So yeah, that's been a real kind of highlight in the event space for me.
Yeah, in some ways, the bad weather is probably better, because I think I would donate more knowing someone's had to slog it up a mountain in horrendous weather than if they got, you know, glorious sunshine. So sometimes the
at night
weather
as well.
seems,
Horrendous weather at night.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes the weather's on your side, isn't it?
Yeah, from a fundraising point of view, yeah.
Yeah. What would you say has been the most successful fundraiser that you've ever been a part of, whether it's at Calm or somewhere else?
The one that springs to mind, and I've talked about this quite a lot recently actually, is Jingle Jam. So Jingle Jam is the world's biggest charity gaming event, and we were fortunate enough at Calm to be one of the charities beneficiaries of it last year. So it takes place for 2 weeks over the Christmas period, was sort of the beginning of December. And I mean, for me, it was the first time having quite a large scale, fundraising coming from the kind of gaming and streaming space. It's something that in all the charities I've worked in, we've tried to get into, but it hasn't quite come off, certainly to the levels of this. And we had a moment when it launched. So the people who were kind of waiting for it to launch are there because they basically sell a kind of collection of games that are only able to buy through being part of Jingle Jam. So when it launches, everyone is ready to go and to start making their donations for those games. We had the whole of our charity. I mean, we're only small anyway, but we were all around the telly, pressing refresh, literally watching this number go up and up and up. And it was going up by tens of thousands within minutes. So yeah, it was phenomenal to be able to stand there and see that money come in, but also to see the reaction of the streamers and all of the people at Jingle Jam who were doing that was, yeah, brilliant.
That's awesome. Are these board games or are these like computer games?
Computer games, but streaming lots of different. So there would be people who are streaming themselves playing board games and things like that as well.
Wow, that's really fun. I mean, did that bring in like a different kind of audience to some of the typical stuff you do?
I think for Calm, not as much. So one of the reasons that we kind of applied to be part of it and, had a successful time doing it is we do have especially for a charity, we do have quite a young audience and a male skewed audience as well. So for us, it really played into what our supporters are doing. And we were therefore able to be just like quite authentic in that space. But for a lot of the other charities and certainly, places I've worked before, it's the audience. So I'm sure it would have opened up a new audience for the other charities involved.
Right. Yeah. So you were strategic. You know where your audience were, and then you've gone there rather than picking up trying to broaden out. That's really interesting. That's really effective and a good story to share. If you were to think generally, what do you think the charity space needs in terms of fundraising to improve? What could be better in general? If you could change one thing, what would it be?
So I don't know whether I should be saying this, but I'm going to. I think it more for me. It would be more collaboration across charities, and by that I mean this is my kind of my passion point in fundraising anyway. I come from kind of events. That was my first role within the charity space, and I just love events. I love what it can do for people. I love seeing people come together, and I think especially working at events, I don't think there's any greater joy for a marketeer or a fundraiser than seeing someone kind of cross that finish line and seeing the achievement on their face, as well as the money they've raised. I love that space. So there's so many events now, it is quite saturated in the charity market, but then when you still see the 40,000 odd people running the London Marathon every year, that's where someone gets the best experience because they're part of this incredible big event, and the fundraising follows from that as well. And I don't think any one charity is going to be able to replicate anything like that in many different ways. So yeah, for me it would be more collaboration, so that as a group of charities you can bring together lots more people to do something really impactful, without putting I guess, again, one of the reasons I've loved fundraising and working in charity is understanding the kind of human motivation around why people do the things that they do. And we're narrowing that funnel by saying we want you to do this thing at this time for just this one cause or this one charity. So being able to open that up and the power of bringing so many different things together, I think would be a really good move in the fundraising space. And that might be an event, or it might be, I think about the original Live Aid, there's nothing like that since, and that sense of everyone wants to be part of it and everyone wants to remember where they were when they watched it or did it or whatever it was. I think that would be amazing to do.
A great answer.
What is you just kind of touched on it a little bit there, but what does motivate people to donate to Calm or get involved with Calm? You said obviously it's male skewed and quite young, but can you?
Yeah, so at the moment motivation is largely because people who are donating to Calm at the moment, the majority do know who Calm is, what we do, and in some way have been impacted by our work, either because of their connection, and they might be bereaved and they might have used our services, but we do have a really kind of loyal, dedicated supporter base of people who want to continue to support Calm. We are trying to grow that, and actually we had so last year we were lucky enough to be one of the beneficiaries of the Times Christmas appeal, and that did open a completely new audience to us, and an audience that we weren't sure what our tone of voice and what our brand, how well that would resonate with a very different audience to ours. But seeing some of the, comments and the feedback from donations that we got, it's really kind of opened up a new opportunity there. And we are sort of doing some other things in that space now. But it just raised, for me, it certainly open my eyes up to some people will just donate because they will read a really powerful story, and even if they're not that close to the actual cause themselves, that again, it comes back to that the human nature of you're hearing about this tough time and therefore you want to do something about it.
Yeah, you should I mean, any of our listeners should go onto the website and look at it. It's a really cool, I loved your branding, like the way that you've sort of laid out that information and balanced what is such a tough subject with you kind of, I don't know, it's just the way that you've ordered the information and kept it about activities and fun things as well. It really doesn't lose sight of the focus, but also it balances it. And I think it's really difficult to do that. So it's commendable. We'll obviously link to the website in the show notes. Some of our audience might be earlier along in their career than you are, but with views to become a fundraising director, or they just want to find a way to get more money for their charity and are desperate to find out what the secret is to doing that. It's such a what kind of skills do you need to have to be a good fundraising director?
I think I've mentioned it a couple of times, but I think for me it's having an interest in human behaviour and what will motivate and what the barriers might be to that as well. So, and that obviously plays heavily into marketing. So I do think having a good understanding of marketing, I don't think the two things can work without each other. So a good understanding of marketing to be able to ensure a real clear message of why people should do something, and that comes from that sort of understanding human behaviour. I then, on top of that, leadership, prioritization, planning. I think, especially coming from a relatively small charity at the moment, there are so many things that we can be doing. There's so many opportunities, even within fundraising, but for various reasons, we just can't do all of them at the same time or at the, in a year, whatever that might be. So being able to really kind of prioritize and stay true to that and not get tempted by the new big shiny thing that's coming in, sort of sticking to a plan within reason, has been something that I've definitely had to get better at since becoming a fundraising director.
I was going to say, traditionally in marketing, I think one of the first things I was told about branding marketing is if you want someone to part with money, you should be, happy and fun and inspiring in sort of the emotions that you provoke. But obviously, quite difficult to do that when you're talking about mental health, depression, suicide. How do you kind of bridge that gap?
Yeah, it is difficult, and actually it's quite a new thing for us at Calm to be going out with a really kind of solo donation focused ask, for lots of different reasons, but largely about how that sits within our brand. I think, generally we don't want to shy away from talking about suicide. So much of the work that we do is about encouraging people to have the right conversations, to not fear talking about suicide, and to be able to, help other people open up and have the right conversations as well. So we definitely don't want to play that down, but we also do shout about life. We talk about survival. We talk about reasons to stay. And I think a lot of what we do in fundraising plays into that really well. You can see it in our cheer points, for example. If you're running for Calm at one of the big events, our cheer points are rowdy, riotous. We absolutely make everyone feel like a complete hero when they go past us. So the reasons they might be doing that could be, really sad, and that could be the motivator, but we still want to make them feel really good for doing it when they run past, when they do something for us.
Yeah.
And I think also, just generally knowing where money goes. So sometimes we do use the sadder side to be able to talk about why we need people to donate to us. Often we talk about the need, the kind of the helpline and the demand for that. So we don't need to go too heavily into the, I guess, some of the sadder things. But yeah, I think generally there's the balance that you talked about earlier as well. Like we definitely don't want to shy away from it. Our brand and our tone of voice is really bold, but there's fundraising can be the uplifting part of it.
Yeah, I like that.
Emily, you've obviously, as we've said, worked across Cancer Research UK, Shelter, lots of different campaigns under your belt. What's part of what makes a good fundraising campaign work? What needs to be in place for it to work?
I think a simple, well understood message. So a really clear call to action of, this is why we need your money. This is the problem. This is the solution. And if you give us your money, you're going to help us do that. I think that's the kind. If you can't, I always come back to, again, especially thinking in the event space, if you're going to run the marathon and you want someone to sponsor you, if you can't explain in a sentence why someone should sponsor you for doing that event for that cause, then it's probably a bit overcomplicated, and that's the kind of language that we need to be putting into our own kind of fundraising campaigns as well. And then there's also storytelling, especially where there is the ability to do that. I've talked about it a few times, but I think that's where you can get that human connection, and people can just understand why. So I think the storytelling throughout is really important.
Yeah, definitely. You touched on it a bit there as well, in focusing on why it's important. It's so easy for you to talk about all the things you're proud of, all of the work you're doing, but consolidating that to one message, one call to action, and one thing is really difficult for lots of other stakeholders to do, because they're like the whataboutery of what we're missing out on this stuff and this stuff, but you lose it all if you don't get it into one concise message, right? Thank you so much for sharing your experience at Calm and also your experience in general. Now we're going to test it in suspicious statistics. So Holly James, who edits the podcast, has put together this segment, and Astra is going to host. And
I am.
So talk us through how the game works.
Okay, so Jason keeps calling it suspicious statistics, but just not to add any confusion, on the presentation it's called fake facts. So same game, different names. There are 3 facts which we will present to you, and one of them is fake. Jason also doesn't know them, so we'll be playing along. And between the two of you, you have to kind of figure out which one it is. So I will share my screen, no peeping, and present section 2. So first up, we have 25 million people are thought to live with anxiety-related conditions worldwide. Reports of anxiety reduced by 1.7% from 2021 to 2022. Or in 2022-23, an average of 37.1% of women and 29.9% of men reported high levels of anxiety. I felt like that was a tongue twister. There's so many numbers. Which one is the fake fact?
I think second one. I would say I'd be surprised if anxiety reduced. I can't think why. What's improved in the world? It's I don't know. What do you think, Emily?
I agree. I think it's the second one. The first one, partly, I'm not very good at like quantifying. I don't know whether 25 million people worldwide is high or low.
Yeah, you can't grasp it, can you?
Like, yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I can't imagine, and certainly, you know, we don't see any information that would suggest that anxiety levels are reducing or have reduced in that time. So I think that would be the one for me.
Okay, we're both agreed. The fake one is number one. It's actually 250 million. So turns out 25 million is quite small globally.
I mean, good news for 2022, right?
Yeah, my thinking is, did they reduce because in 2021 to 2022 it was that lovely little window of no lockdowns for quite a while. So maybe that was, I mean, it's still a relatively small reduction, but maybe that was responsible. People were like, "Yay, outdoors! Can't wait."
Summer does a good summer does a lot for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll get you back on in a year, Emily, and see what it says 2022 to 2023. So next up, we've got globally 5% of adults suffer from depression. More than 10% of pregnant women and women who have just given birth experience depression. Or 25% of suicides in women under 25 has previously been assessed as low risk.
I mean, none of them are great, are they?
No, not very strong. We never really fill this segment with good stats. Maybe we should try. In the spirit of fundraising and around sad things, we'll try for the next episode, maybe.
My thoughts are that the first one might be fake. I think it's probably higher than 5%.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the same.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the same again. I think it's higher.
Jason has a habit of just copying the guests so that if you win, Emily, so does he. So. Oh, sorry, I skipped ahead there. 25% of suicides in women under 25 had previously been assessed as low risk. It was actually 79%.
Wow.
So, which I think just shines a light on why the latest campaign is needed, more than ever, if these signals are going unheard in women. So,
well, this is that sparked a conversation in our office, didn't it, about this subject, about how often when you go to well, maybe you're a better place to talk about
we were just talking about sort of like medical bias and how often when women go to the doctors and they're of, I don't know, childbearing age, they're just like, oh, it's just your hormones, or oh, your period's probably coming, and a lot of complaints don't get taken as seriously as they should be. But I think there's a lot of campaigning going on right now around that, and hopefully that will change, because 79% of women being assessed as low risk is not on at all.
No, that is not good.
On to the men now. 84% of men die by suicide. Oh, sorry, not 84% of men. Correction, let me go back. 84 men die by suicide each week in the UK. 10% of men won't talk about their mental health with friends or family. Men are now almost 3 times more likely to see a therapist if they're worried compared to 2009. What do we think is the fake one?
This is more, at least there's one positive in there. I think the last one's true. It seems in the right vein. I'm speaking first because I'll get accused of plagiarism on this one. The first one, I think that was your last campaign. I'm just hoping I didn't misremember if it was week or month, but I think it's correct. So I think 10% is the fake backs, and I think it's higher that number.
Yeah, I agree.
Same on that one. Let's see. Oh,
yeah.
10% of men won't talk about their mental health. It's actually 40%. So 84% of men die each week by suicide, we'd probably have noticed that a bit more if it was 84% every week. So apologies for my blunder there, guys. I think that might be the last one, and we may be tied.
So we score 1 point.
It is. I think, collectively, you're all on 2. So that's the end of segment 2. Jason, I will pass over to you for the third and final segment.
Yeah, sure. So it's always nice at the end to just kind of summarize what we've covered. And this is the part that absolutely terrifies me, where we're going to produce a random word and try and link everything we've covered back to that word. And I'm just Googling for a random word. Actually, I can bring this up so you can see that it is random. because I had someone ask me whether any of this stuff was random or if we prepared it, because the last word we used was
Passion.
very, very fitting. Passion. Yeah. Right. We're not going to go battlefield because that was already there loaded. We're going to generate, and it's express.
Oh, see, this one is quite fitting as well. Emily, I think we'll let you go. We'll let you go first on this one.
First.
I agree. This should be coming more easily to me. I think express for me shows how important it is for an organisation, a charity like Calm, to help people with the right tools and the right language that they can express their feelings and keep them on the prevention side of the continuum we talked about.
Yeah, I think so. Just to
Nice.
build on that, you know, if more people were able to express how they felt and express particularly the statistics there around men, or when women's expressions are taken a bit more seriously by medical professionals, for example, then we'll see some of those stats start to move in the right direction. Hopefully, with work of Calm, etc., as well, helping with that, I'm sure. So, Jason, final word, your favourite.
I'll try and use a different word, a different meaning of the word. So I'll go the express in the terms of like speed. So I think it was really interesting when Emily said about what she would change about the kind of the charity sector, and about how so many people do the same thing when it comes to like the marathon and things like that. And I think maybe there's the quick answer isn't always the best answer. It's like the quick answer is, well, we need to do that because everyone else does that. Well, because everyone else does that, as Emily said, why don't we all work together? And instead of doing that first 100 meters on our own and making the same mistakes that everyone else has made, we could learn from each other and maybe push together in the right direction and everyone can save a lot more resource that way. I thought that was a really good point. So it's a bit of a tenuous one. I don't know how I've linked to express there, but yeah, that was a really good point. So I like that.
Well, I'll take that. That's a really nice summary.
Cool. Well, awesome. So towards the end, Emily, we always like to ask as well, is there somebody else in the charity space that you would like just to shed some light on or shout out because of the work they do? And can you tell me who they are and what kind of work they're doing?
So in terms of a kind of a charity brand, the one that comes to mind that I really admire at the moment is Choose Love. I think they have done just such a phenomenal job. Obviously, that the cause that they represent and the work that they're doing with refugees is incredible. But the way they've built their brand and being able to create merchandise that people see as a fashion item and want to buy, I just think is incredible. They've found a really great way to use their ambassadors, their talent, their famous supporters. Wear the t-shirt, take a picture. It's such a simple thing, but the fundraising, I don't know what the numbers are, but the fundraising that I'm assuming they're doing off the back of that is brilliant, and I think they've done such a good job. The words Choose Love don't immediately describe what they do, but it's so engaging. I think anyone wants to then find out, which again is just a great strategy for them.
Yeah, I mean, they used to be called like Help Refugees, right? Which is exactly what they do. And by actually stepping away from what they do, they've managed to, that's very clever, very clever.
And brave as well. Lots of ministers would tell you not to do that for so many reasons. And it turns out that they've made the new brand really work for them.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Emily Clayton, for joining us from Calm. It's been a really, really fun episode. We'll link to the website and the No Signal for Help Should Go Unseen campaign, of course, in the show notes. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much. Great talking to you both. Thank you.